So the big question this morning is the president or the presidency determined to end corruption in this country. Now joining me live is lawyer Duncan Okach. Wakili, good morning. Welcome to the program. Now we've seen a bit of new names when it comes to the DCI head. The DPP head was been very much active. Would you say there's some sort of a renewed effort to fight corruption in Kenya?
Thank you so much for this opportunity. From my end, indeed, what is coming out is that the government is actually demonstrating through action that it's no longer business as usual. Indeed, taking from the words of David Murathe, it is very, very clear that those words were not just words, but actually they were words that we could take to the bank. Indeed, we are the bank at this particular stage as a country, and the president's actions clearly depict a president who does not want corruption to be neither a hindrance to the achievement of the Big Four agenda or corruption to be part of the legacy that we will remember his administration for. And that is why the very first changes that were made, and you've rightly captured, were changes in terms of the Directorate of Criminal Investigations and changes in the Director of Public Prosecutions. It was clear that there was a problem there. The judges said now and again that the problem lies not in the cases being brought to court, but in the manner of investigations and in the manner of prosecution, such that it was very clear that cases were brought to court and they were orchestrated to fail. And without conviction, the deterrent measure in the criminal justice system also fails. And that is why you find people, the corruption was something akin of an impunity action from these particular individuals because nothing could happen. But we wake up today, we see members of parliament even supporting the Jubilee administration and having been elected under that ticket, finding their way to court, and we have seen convictions of even high-profile people in this particular new administration. In the courts, even going a step further as to even deny bail to such people and equating corruption to actually being equal or even worse than murder.
Wakili, speaking about the courts, I'm sure you've seen this development that, the judiciary has received a lot of, budgetary cuts. And this is one institution that, so many people, especially in the executive and, especially politicians who've been blaming judiciary for, slow conclusion of these cases. Don't you think these cuts in budgets might affect how the courts are going to operate moving forward?
It may not affect directly in terms of matters being taken to court and all that, because it's not like we have a shortage directly of courtrooms, but it is about expanding the ease and access of justice. And that is why, in terms of expansion, we will have a problem there. And that is why the Chief Justice said there are programs which are already in place, which will actually be affected because we have to now stop those expansion programs. But at least for the core mandate and what is already there, what has been budgeted for is enough. But based on that, you also see the executive came out and indicated that, yes, we've had your plea, we will review that. And that came from none other than the Deputy President, who indicated that they will try to review that. But you'll notice that it comes in the backdrop of the revisiting headline, whereby Parliament is trying to revisit that, and some people will, by extension, say the executive is trying to revisit. And the essence of it, and it is always said, the person who will suffer is not the Chief Justice, neither is it any judge. They'll receive their pay as usual. But in terms of the common mwananchi who seeks to access justice very efficiently, and in terms of having cases concluded at a very fast rate, that is what is going to suffer. And then it affects you and me as a common mwananchi, as opposed to the judiciary as an institution. But even as I say that, I still indicate that the war against corruption there's an element of infighting. That is why I'm saying the president is very clear in terms of the fight against corruption. But remember, within the same government, when these endeavors are actually taking place, you found elements in the government or within the Jubilee administration questioning the same actions, noble actions that our good president has already indicated. It shows that, and I always say, this is a Siamese-twin government, whereby they have to move together. They have to talk in tandem. But when you have the left hand doing the opposite and the right hand doing the opposite, it therefore means it will still retract any benefits that will be accruing or any good intentions in fighting corruption. And these tenderpreneurs will actually take advantage of it every day.
Wakili, speaking about money, this is a country that loses, close to 600 billion Kenya shillings of its budget through corruption. There are reports that put the numbers even bigger than 600 billion shillings. I mean, this war on corruption, despite the new DPP, the new DCI, and the tough-talking president, the war on corruption cannot be won overnight, right?
The war on corruption cannot be won overnight. It needs concerted effort, and it starts from goodwill from the top. And the top means the president, his deputy, the cabinet secretaries, and everyone. And the president has set the pace, as I've indicated. But it is very, very unfortunate that if you look at today's headlines, both in the Standard and in the Daily Nation, two leading newspapers in the country, they carry the same sad story for Kenyans, in that there are still schemes being hatched. Today we have a 3 billion scheme being hatched, and that will still send us to the drain. It will be into the Anglo-leasing saga. It tells you that it cannot be won overnight, but the wise people and the Chinese say that a journey of 1,000 miles will start with one step, and that one step is what we should cherish to give us the second and the third step, because corruption is deeply, deeply intertwined to a point that it has become a way of life of some people in Kenya, and majority of them, such that fighting corruption itself is not an easy thing. I know people have died. We have rumors that even cabinet secretaries have died trying to fight corruption, trying to fight scourges in this country. That this issue of corruption fighting back, and it fights back like an angry bulldog, is something that is a reality in Kenya. But it should not mean that we do not support the good efforts that are there. But we also have seen, like what is happening today, and even in your interview with Simbarat, you notice that even Parliament itself, as an institution, which Kenyans have placed hope on in terms of trying to fight corruption, and corruption which actually affects your life, my life, and our children's life, in terms of the sugar issue, is something that even the members of Parliament are actually playing with by virtue of corruption. They are actually being corrupted by the corrupt, and using the corrupt money that has been achieved through corruption. And eventually you don't know where to turn to, because you are told judiciary is being, the judiciary itself is also not so clean. You are told the executive is not so clean. The executive is not so clean. We have put Wabukala as the chair of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, and even prayers have not helped us. So we are country degenerating into what we call a megadeth syndrome, whereby we are almost giving up on that, on the fight itself.
Thank you very much, Wakili. That is Lawyer Duncan Okach speaking to me on ways and means of fighting corruption in this country. Many thanks, Wakili, for that. Now let's cross over to a different story altogether now, where at least 40 teachers were assaulted by students during the school unrest witnessed in 107 secondary schools in 14 counties. The Teacher Service Commission says the affected teachers have been transferred, even as Nancy Macharia dismissed claims that delocalization of teachers was to blame for the unrest. This emerged Thursday when various education stakeholders appeared before the Parliamentary Committee probing school unrest. Brenda Radido has more on that story.
These were the scenes that had become familiar in 107 schools affected by unrest. Destruction of property by stoning of windows, banning of dormitories, and refusal by students to attend classes. A worrying trend that would see TSC, NAT, and the Kenya Secondary Schools Head Association appear before the National Assembly Education Committee, probing the unrest to shed more light on the worrying trend.
There should be thorough investigation on arson cases by the CID to establish the extent of planning, the level of organization, and pattern of coordination involved.
Till I get those reports, there is no way I can tell whether teachers were involved or not.
Much of the unrest stem up from change in rules. A new principal comes and they change their ways of working. Every school has a culture.
It was a 3-hour session that would see the education stakeholders clash over who is to blame for the unrest.
Since teacher delocalization policy appears to be the main cause of strikes, the program should be scrapped off with immediate effect.
We cannot point at delocalization as one reason causing this. It could be a trigger just like the many others. And we have already proposed to the Teacher Service Commission on how this delocalization could be done that gives it a face, a human face, and a satisfaction.
Our report by TSC shows that out of the 1,065 schools that have experienced unrest, 90 have new principals as a result of delocalization. While NAT has insisted that delocalization was to blame for the increased cases of indiscipline, TSC CEO Nancy Macharia was firm that the policy would not change. Macharia told the Julius Melly-led committee that at least 40 teachers were assaulted by students and have since been transferred.
What is a teacher supposed to do in some circumstances? Because if you go to arrest that unrest, then you are attacked by your very own students. What is a teacher supposed to do? I think this is we should have a national conversation.
A total of 186 students have so far been arrested in 14 counties and suspended, awaiting the Board of Management decisions, while others have been arraigned in court. The number of private schools affected stands at 1,800, with peer pressure and drug abuse being blamed for the unrest. Brenda Zada Radido, KTN News.
Away from motor school unrest, now let me return you back to Parliament buildings. We understand that the Chairman of Agriculture Committee, Aden Haji, is on standby. Mheshimiwa, good morning. Welcome to the program. Earlier, I've been speaking to Simba Arati, that is Member of Parliament, Dagoretti North, and he talked about, matters to do with the sugar report, where he dismissed the report by your committee, saying that there are some bits and pieces that are missing, the names of, certain cabinet secretaries that are missing from that report. What do you have to say about that first?
Thank you very much, Yusuf. I'm aware that there are issues with the report which we have laid before the House on Wednesday evening. Unfortunately, and this is an isolated case, it is quite unfortunate that we discovered upon tabling the report that some sections of report, namely 5.16, 5.5, 5.6 and 5.11 of the report on the section of recommendation were altered by persons which are not known to us up to now. It's quite unfortunate. We are getting to the bottom of that. We've also protested to the Speaker, and we are suspecting that those we asked to do the final works, that is the Secretariat, could have a hand in it, but we are getting to the bottom. Mm-hmm. Having said that, that cannot dismiss this report. This report is fantastic. The Joint Committee did some wonderful work on it. 99% of this report is what Kenyans wanted to hear, and we stand by that. Mm-hmm. I'm told some members are already attempting to rubbish the report, but this is going to be very dangerous, as any attempt to throw this report or to shut it down on the floor of the House would be met with resistance by majority of members, I'm sure.
Before this report was tabled on Wednesday, I believe the plenary one was tabled, was it 3 weeks ago? And by then, the Speaker of the National Assembly is on record having said that the investigation by your committee and the trade is bound to fail because of the conduct of some of the members of your committee, because basically this is what he said, quote unquote, that some of the MPs were hugging and kissing suspects instead of doing the actual job of probing these individuals. What are you going to say about the conduct of the members of Parliament within your committee and that of trade as well?
This is again an unfortunate scenario where issues have been raised, put out of proportion, but I'm certain, and Yusuf, you are going to go through this report in details, the kind of negative media publicity our progress report elicited is not reflected in this report. At the moment, this report is not reflective of that kind of scenario where members were kissing and hugging. This report is stinging. This indicting. This report is in detail. It was answering questions Kenyans asked. It was answering the questions Honorable Naisula Lesuda asked. The health question, the issue of tax evasion, the issue of gazette notice and excess sugar that was imported, and it left no stone unturned. So it is not reflective of the kind of negative publicity the committee is. And this was very unfair, that one isolated case was blown out of proportion to insinuate or to impute improper motive on committee members that have done wonders.
Mheshimiwa Haji, that is one isolated case, yet we have another case at hand that is, some details missing from the report in question. Is it fair or is it accurate to say that some members of parliament within both your committee and that of trade have been compromised in a way?
This is, again, as I said, is an unfortunate case where we were not in control of what was going on. I remember immediately after we finished the report, we wanted each and every member to sign on each and every page of that report for members to ascertain that indeed what we are presented to the House is the true reflection of what the Joint Committee had come up with in terms of observation and as well as recommendation. Unfortunately, there was pressure of time. Members had no time. I insisted personally that members must read, screen the document, initial each and every page before it goes in front of the House, but that did not happen. This unfortunate scenario came up. Only a section, 3 sections, which actually it's unfortunate that we do not agree with. It was not reflective of what the Joint Committee had said, and we proacted very quickly, and the Speaker thankfully allowed the amendment that will be brought before the House. 99% of this report is intact, and it is in fact what Kenyans wanted to hear. Kenyans wanted to know whether the sugar out there is fit for human consumption. We have deliberated that point very, very well. Those sugars that have been seized and which said to contain impurities are under lock and key. Those that are out there in the supermarket shelves are fit for human consumption. We have a report from KEPS that has done 45 counties, surveillance on 45 counties, and this report is there for your scrutiny as well. And so I want to say that the sugar we have there is largely safe for human consumption.
Thank you very much, Honorable Aden Haji, for your input. That is